Of course, the title of this episode is a metaphor for not seeking to escape our anxiety, but instead face the discomfort that presents itself in the present moment. And actually, when we don't run from the need to escape the present moment, we become less anxious. So I like the example of a long car ride because if you have a 10-hour car ride and from the moment you start driving, you're focusing on getting to the destination, that car ride is going to feel really long, really strenuous, and really anxious because you're constantly trying to rush time. And time can't be rushed. Time is, you know, it's going to move in a neutral manner. It's when time flies by, it's not because time actually moved quicker, it's because we started experiencing time in the relative manner that it is. If we're having fun, time quote unquote speeds up, but really it's just that we're in the flow and we're in the present moment of things and we're not concerned with time. So, what is the right approach if you have a long car ride? And I think the right approach is actually to completely dive into discomfort sort of head on. And what I mean by that is eliminate the fact that there is a destination completely. Get comfortable in the car. Say, this is where I'm at now. I might as well get comfortable here. Don't think about the destination. Just get comfortable being in the car. Don't think about being out of the car. Don't think about where you're going. Just make do with the present moment. This will cause significantly less stress and it will create way less anxiety for you. And I know what you're thinking. This is really hard. How can I stay present in such a, uncomfortable maybe environment? And I know that the looming sort of event that is, you know, getting out of the car to my destination is so far away. How can I truly stay present? And the answer is it's going to feel really anxiety inducing at first. So there's two ways you can go about it, right? When you're in a long car ride, when you're in the car, you can either constantly seek to escape. And this is for reference if you're not driving. If you're the one driving, then you kind of have no choice but to focus on this practice. But in a way, it's a little bit easier because there's cars on the road and you have to focus, and there's something at least taking your attention. But if you're not driving and you have a long car ride, there's two ways that you can go about it. You can either constantly look to distract yourself, so it's one movie and then another movie. And there's actually nothing wrong with this. And the practice that I'm going to say, secondly, isn't going to negate the fact that you can watch movies, watch shows, and listen to music. You can do that, and then every 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, you're constantly hoping to lose yourself in not looking at the time, but you're constantly feeling that anxiety every 10, 15 minutes, whatever it may be. You check the time, there's a lot of time left, and you feel anxious again. You go back, maybe you forget for a tiny bit, and then you feel anxious again because you're checking the time. So the more efficient way to go about this isn't to try to lose ourselves out of the present moment, but rather to surrender so deeply to the circumstances that the need to escape it actually just sort of wears off. It sort of dissipates because we're not really showing it any attention. So I even challenge you in the most difficult part of the car ride, which is maybe the first 30 minutes to an hour because the destination seems so far away, do no distractions. Our ability to control our perspective is a gift because if you can control your perspective, you can control how you feel in the present moment. You can't control the outside factors, but you can control what happens within you. And let me give another example. If where you're living, if where you are now seems really, really bad, right? Whether it's bad or not isn't necessarily an objective truth, right? There might be some sort of things that we can all agree upon, someone shouldn't live in an apartment that's completely trashed or a house that is falling apart. We can agree on that, kind of. But then you ask someone who doesn't have a home, and they may feel luxurious after living somewhere like that because they've just experienced a lot worse. And this can go for any situation. It's a matter of perspective. When you go through something really challenging, and then you experience something not so challenging, the not so challenging thing feels even better than it would have had you not experienced the challenging thing. Does that make sense? So we can actually use this to our advantage. in the first 30 minutes to an hour of a car ride. And by the way, guys, when I'm talking about the entire, I guess, model of reference here, which is the long car ride, I want you to imagine this as any sort of uncomfortable, anxiety inducing environment, any situation. I'm just using this one because it's, highly common and highly relatable. So when those first 20, 30 minutes and even an hour are, something in the amount of time that you're allocating to having no distractions, no phone, no movie, no music whatsoever. Of course, if there's people in the car, you talk to them, that makes it a little bit easier. But let's say the car is silent and there's absolutely no distractions. Oh, it's going to feel really not pleasant. Very not pleasant, especially if you're someone who scrolls on social media, if you're someone who doesn't maybe spend as much time without stimulating things. It's going to feel really, really shitty. But if you can just get through that 30 minutes to an hour, just get through that, maybe even set a timer. If you can get through that, the rest of the car ride is going to feel pretty damn easy. And you could take this as far as you want. You can make it the first 2 hours, whatever it is. Because then once you have your phone to retreat into, whatever it may be, it's going to feel like heaven compared to having absolutely no distractions. And this is how we manipulate our perspective. This is how we earn feeling peace. We don't have to go crazy with it. We don't have to completely, eliminate all anxiety inducing situations and how it affects us because we can't control the environment, of course. But what we can do is face incremental discomfort in exchange for incremental peace by shaping our perspective. That's why we do difficult things, and that's why we should practice being present in uncomfortable situations because it makes the rest of our life significantly easier to be present into. So now let's talk about the obvious mindfulness practice that can be applied here. And that is, you know, every time that you think of the destination while you're on a long car ride, you take your awareness out of following that thought and bring it back into the present moment. And you do that as many times as, as is necessary. And this is the fundamental practice of meditation is when you notice yourself being carried into the storyline of a thought, you just bring yourself back. That's it. You just remind yourself, I don't want to be doing that, and you bring yourself back. And you might lose yourself again, and you bring yourself back. And every time you bring yourself back, you kind of work out that muscle in your mind that allows you to stay present. That's all it is. That's how you live in the present moment. You practice the muscle of living in the present moment, and that's all it is. And those are the reps that you do. And this can go with, the feelings that we feel in our body as well. If your chest starts to get tight, if you start feeling those familiar anxious symptoms, you just say, I'm not gonna think about it too much, to be honest. I'm just gonna come back to the present moment. And that's it. You just keep coming back into the present moment. You keep coming back. A thought takes you, you come back. A feeling takes you, you come back. And you keep coming back, coming back, coming back. And this is how living in the present reveals how much thinking we actually do. And there's an obvious question and answer here. If you want to feel less anxious, you have to be more present. To be more present, you have to feel all the anxiety that wants to be felt. Anxiety doesn't go away. It becomes tolerable because we experience it. So when you don't have anything to distract yourself from in that anxious environment, in that anxiety, you are forced to face it. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. This doesn't mean if you're thirsty, don't drink water. That's not what it means at all. Everything within limits, everything within the bounds of logic. But we face that discomfort, we face that anxiety. We don't allow it to sort of try to push us into these corners, such as retreating impulsively and obsessively into our phone, or, you know, constantly like fidgeting or whatever else we do when we're anxious. We notice these sort of micro behaviors or macro behaviors that we partake in, and we notice how it's taking us away from the present moment. There's a trend a while ago, I don't know if you guys saw it. It's called quote unquote raw dogging an airplane. So all that means is people go on a long or short trip on an airplane, and instead of having any distractions, they just raw dog it. They don't have any phones, they don't have any technology, they don't do anything. They just sit there and just, I guess, wait for the plane to land. And when I saw this trend, I actually thought this is one of the most mindful trends to ever come about on social media because, yeah, I mean, if any of you try that, it's extremely difficult, especially not under the use of any sort of altering substances. I guess that's an important caveat. But yeah, it's extremely difficult. Those chairs usually aren't very comfortable, and you don't really know how much longer is left in the flight if you're not checking your phone, if you're not checking the time or anything like that. You're just sitting there. And when you get off that plane, you're going to feel amazing because it's a perspective shift. You just went through hell. So now the bar for experiencing heaven is much lower. Does that make sense? And that's kind of the entire emphasis of living life is the more outside of our comfort zones we go, the more we challenge ourselves, the more we feel discomfort, the easier our life gets as a result of our tolerance for anxiety, for fear, whatever it may be. We don't do difficult things because they're fun. We do difficult things because they allow us to have more fun. Someone who is unhealthy doesn't go on a diet because it's fun. They go on a diet because they're going to feel better in the future. That's why we do it. And if you don't seek out, expanding your limits, if you don't seek out trying to live with more presence in the discomfort, in the anxiety, then that discomfort and that anxiety is going to seek you. If you don't seek it, it will seek you. This isn't something to be afraid of. It's something to feel empowered by. Because as soon as you decide, okay, I'm taking the dance to fear, I'm taking the dance to discomfort, to anxiety, it starts running away. Not because it wanted to bother you or it doesn't want to bother you, but because you are affirming a sense of confidence and a sense of willingness that your brain can cooperate with. As soon as you make the decision to not be bullied by anxious feelings, to not be taken out of the present moment by those hyperfixations or whatever it is you do, your brain learns and your brain adapts and your brain starts to create a, a repetitive, um, way of existing. Sorry, a way of existing that only exists because of the actions you've repeated many, many times. That's called flexing the muscle in the brain that is going to result in you living with more presence, living with more freedom, and just living lighter overall. So when the question is, how do we live in the present moment? You practice. You practice living in the present moment. You rewire your mind to live in the present moment, just like anything else. A thought takes you away, you come back. A feeling takes you away, you come back. Soon your mind is going to realize, oh, we're not supposed to be seeking distractions from the present moment. We're supposed to be surrendering and giving up to the present moment. And it'll start cooperating with you because it'll start to see, the brain wants to serve you. It's going to start to see, I'm of no service. I am of no support if I'm trying to take, this human out of the present moment. But if I do support them living in the present moment, then they start engaging with me. Then I actually start receiving some feedback from the conscious awareness of who they are. And the brain is always desiring some sort of feedback to learn and to incorporate into its algorithm. So it's all about, what are we feeding the brain? And that's why meditation is so emphasized and so useful. Because day one sucks, day two sucks, day three, four, whatever it is, sucks, sucks, sucks. And then slowly it starts to suck a little bit less. It starts to become a little bit less difficult. And then the tides really begin to shift because we start to realize, oh, the point of meditation isn't just to sit with my thoughts, but the point of meditation is to exist with the thoughts and not allow them to take me out of the present moment. And then there's a second epiphany. The more I sit with discomfort, the more I meditate, the more the other things in my life become significantly less difficult. And I'm not saying meditation is the key to all of life. Because me, myself, I've went through phases where I've meditated a lot and then phases where I've meditated little, if any at all. But if we are having trouble practicing the things that I'm saying when in the heat of the moment, when on that long car ride, it can help to set aside a little bit of time where we practice that. And I know the natural reaction and the natural impulse pretty much everybody has. It's, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit and do nothing. It sounds boring. It sounds excruciating. It sounds frustrating. And yeah, I know. And it is. There's no denying it. And if you're expecting a mystical or spiritual experience right away, you're probably not going to get that, to be honest with you. And I'll add a little bit of hope in there for the spiritual seekers, and that is if you meditate enough, you'll find that the present moment and the flow of existing in the present moment is quite spiritual within itself, and the sort of synchronistic things that you uncover and observe as a result of living in the present moment. That's something I'm going to leave to your own interpretation. But one thing is clear. If we practice being present in uncomfortable situations, being present in neutral situations become much, much easier. Much, much easier. And then becoming present in positive situations feels effortless. So do you see how we're slowly bringing down the paradigm and we're bringing the positives, we're dragging the positives down into the negatives by shifting our focus and attention and awareness into the negatives? When we shift our focus to discomfort, to being present in discomfort, it makes being present in all areas of our life much easier. And as well, we can also use the practice that I mentioned earlier, and that is manipulating our perspective into rewarding us for doing these difficult things. And actually, I don't even think manipulating is the right word because it's just going to do it on its own. If you go on a really difficult run and then a week later you go on a very, very mild run, it's going to make that mild run feel much, much lighter because you just did that very difficult run. And that's how pretty much everything works. It's a matter of perspective. We don't seek out being present to enjoy our lives inherently, but being present is the only thing to do. If you're living in thought, you're not living in reality. So by being present, we are going to find those uncomfortable situations. If you're always overthinking, you're going to start even overthinking, where do I find these difficult environments? Where do I find all these difficult situations? And just like a long car ride comes into your life, certain uncomfortable environments come into your life naturally. They will just naturally come. So it's not really that we even have to seek them. Though we could seek them. And if you want to take it that far, you really can trailblaze your way into finding peace because all you have to do is push that sort of tolerance that you have further and further and keep finding peace in those difficult environments. And that will obviously change your perception of the easier environments. But we actually don't even have to seek. All we have to do is stay present even when the difficult things emerge. All we have to do is not run. That's all we have to do. Not escape. Don't escape. Do not escape. Face in the present moment. And again, I'll repeat that practice one more time before I wrap up. A thought starts trailing you along, it starts telling you a story. Just come back to the present moment. And you might say, well, how do I do that? There's nothing to do. Bring yourself out from following that thought that you were about to obsess over or that you were about to kind of follow, and just look around you. And that's it. Where you are now is where you always were. There's nowhere else to be except here and now. And here's a very, very interesting, I'll actually completely end with. I don't want to drag this on too long. Something very interesting happens when we start living in the present moment. There's a flow, there's an excitement, there's a momentum that you'll feel. And I don't want to describe it too much because it's indescribable. But that is the spiritual nature of the present moment. You don't have to talk about it, you'll feel it. The more present you are, the more that flow starts to carry you. You're surfing your way through life. Doors suddenly start to open. And that's where I'll leave it. You make a long car ride more enjoyable by not thinking about the destination, but by just accepting where you are. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'm actually going to leave a link in the description for my book. If you want to buy that, I dive into topics like this and a lot more. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you as always, and that is it for me. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.